Number 139 of Broad Street Hustle. I'm your host, Jason Sayeda, and tonight we're going to get into some Phillies talk. Phillies finally had some action last week in the Hot Stove League. So some interesting moves the Phillies made. So we'll touch on that first before we jump into an Eagles review of their loss against the Commanders. Do a quick preview against Dallas, and then we'll do our weekly picks. Um, Tonight's episode, as always, is brought to you by Giovanina's Pizza. You've tried the rest, now try the best, Giovanina's. So Tommy's having some technical issues, is not able to join us tonight. However, we are joined by our other usual co-host. The first is Jimmy the Chalk. What's up, Chalky?
I am not lucky enough to be having technical issues tonight, so here I am.
Yeah, your picks have been good, so at least you have that.
Yeah, we'll see.
And then back is Meeker. I think Meeker has been missing for what, 2 or 3 weeks now.
Yeah, good
We
to be
we
back.
get we get his valuable
I
reading tips every week for
wish I
those
was abstaining
leading
from
tips.
the 3 weeks of picks. That would have been better than just not showing
No,
up. Yes.
we have there's a few people who reach out to me that need your picks every week that are waiting for your picks every week. So very important that we have your at least your picks every
That's
week.
nice
So
feedback. That's a good sign. Not really. Go ahead.
no, not really. All right, so let's jump into it here. So the Phillies finally had some action from the Phillies last week. Made 2 moves. The first one was they signed, Max Kepler, um, who was I guess, career-long Minnesota Twin. They got him on a 1-year deal, for very little money, and you guys, if you what is it,
12.
8, 12, 10 was it 12,000,000? Yeah, 12,000,000 bucks. Guy's a phenomenal defensive player. Now he's a left-handed thrower and hitter, not the throwing matters, but he's a lefty. Um Like I said, they got him for cheap. He's been injured. He was injured last year, but when he's healthy, guy's probably a 20-25 home run hitter. Um, Probably hit you 260. Decent player. Apparently he's your left fielder for next year, which I'm fine with. But I think other moves have to be made, and we'll get into that. Um, and then they made the big trade, Jesus Luzardo, which I'm a huge fan of. I mean, we could get into that more, obviously. I'll jump into my thoughts after you guys give yours, but, they gave up one of their trading chips, which was Kaba, the infielder, pretty highly regarded. Arguably their 3rd best prospect, maybe 4th, but they gave him up, and then they gave up a lesser prospect, but Luzardo is 27 years old. He's got controllable years left, and I like it a lot. And then they made a small, signing of Joe Ross, as a depth guy, guy who could swing between either being your 5th starter or, long arm out of the bullpen, could slot in either spot there. Kinda similar to Turnbull, what Turnbull did for us last year, but, um, another cheap move that's probably gonna help. So, I'll start with you, Chalky, thoughts on those 2 bigger moves and then 1 minor move?
Well, I think as I said last week, if they were gonna be improving the starting pitching, it was gonna have to come through trade market. And Luzardo is not as somebody we talked about specifically recently, but you have talked about in the past. And um, I think Kaba is at best their 4th prospect. I mean, he's got to be behind Painter, Crawford, and Miller. So highly regarded, but you didn't give up any of your 3 most valuable guys, and he's still a few years away and potentially blocked by Miller anyway, depending on where Miller ends up playing. So, nothing wrong with that. And I think he's got number 2 upside. Maybe not right away, but I think you're hoping perhaps he can slot into that number 2 role, if not by the end of this season, shortly thereafter. Uh, the question is, okay, now assuming that you're not going to have Walker in the rotation, you got 3 left-handers. So what does that mean? Uh, I don't know that Suarez will get moved before the year, but he could be somebody that goes during the year. Even that might be a trade that another contender who has a piece that they don't need as much, you could swap with them to get another role player or a borderline starter, I guess. I just don't see them doing three lefties in the rotation, but I don't know. Um, and Kepler, you and I talked about it a little bit, Jason. I mean, it's not a sexy signing, I guess, but it's probably an improvement. Now, Meeker, either of you might know now. I believe he's never played left field before. So while he's a good defender,
He's
he's
not.
not a left fielder per se. So that could be in question. Um, but it seemed like that was going to spell the end for Marsh, but nothing obviously has happened there yet. So we'll see. And Ross, I mean, it's okay. He had like a decent year last year. He can either spot start or give you maybe long innings of the bullpen. You need those kind of guys because, like you say, Turnbull's not going to be back. Hoffman's not going to be back, and they still have other roles to fill. So they finally got something done. I think people wanted a bigger bat, but that's not really realistic. And Dombrowski said they're not going to be in on the big name free agents. So I'll take him at his word on that. But he made a good move to add to the pitching. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I heard somebody say, like, any free agent they sign, they basically, counts double against their
Hmm.
cap, I guess, because of the
Yep.
tax. So, yeah, I think they're pretty much done with free agents. Now, I still think a trade could be made, and we can get into that in a little bit, but, Meeker, what are your thoughts?
Well, I read today that they're on a couple of sites that they're actually expecting to re-sign Austin Hayes. So yeah, I read that today. It was like something new that I just read. So I'm not sure
And I'm fine with that.
if that's happening, but if that's what they're planning on doing, now you're basically platooning two positions as it stands. Perhaps left field with Kepler and Hayes, perhaps center field with Marsh and Rojas, unless there's a trade to be made. And I think that could be coming mainly on the heels of the Luzardo signing. And, I had stated in earlier podcasts that I would not be opposed to the Phillies, including Ranger Suarez in a trade, assuming that you're going to get Painter at some point in the year. Um, and now that they signed another left-handed starter, I feel like there's that's more likely to happen. Maybe like Chalky said, it doesn't happen right now, but if we have a timetable on Painter and when he's going to return, maybe it happens during the season. The question is, are you better off trading Ranger in the off season or chancing it, risking that he doesn't have a good start to the season and get lesser value for him during the year, especially that his contract's coming up.
So
Uh,
so let's stop there, Meeker, and let's talk about the rotation. So right now, obviously, Wheeler's your ace. I think Luzardo is gonna slot in the 2. This way you can split up your righties, lefties, and then Nola would be 3. Either or, Nola 2, Luzardo 3, either or.
yeah.
Now you have Sanchez and then Ranger. Painter's gonna pitch at some point, right?
But yeah,
So
he's very he's not even really going to throw in spring training. He's not going to
no,
get in
so
games. So
okay,
he's
so
like second half of the year
by
is
July, you
yeah.
figure he's gonna pitch, alright? That's 6 starters. You don't need 6 starters.
No.
You don't need 6 starters, and you can pitch Ross, right, as your 5th starter up until July, right, when Painter would kinda take over. They have too many starters right now. I think something else is coming, and it would be Ranger that
Yeah.
gets moved.
Yeah. And I think, if you're going to trade Ranger, it's going to be for an offensive piece, obviously.
Well,
So
not necessarily. It could be a closer too that they could trade him for.
uh, uh,
They
like,
need a closer still. They don't have a closer. They need
yeah,
a closer. How you getting one?
I mean, I don't, I'm trying, I scoured through some of the guys that might be out there that they could trade for. I don't have anyone that's jumping out at me that it's worth trading a Ranger Suarez for, perhaps, just from 1-to-1. But I think it would be, to me, I think it would be more for an offensive piece because I don't know that I would like this whole platoon situation all over the outfield, other than Castellanos, stable in right field. Um, but again, I mean, if you're saying that Dombrowski has pretty much stated that we're not getting Santander, we're not getting Teoscar Hernandez. I mean, this is the outfield you have. So who can you go after the trade market for an outfield? And preferably at this point, it would be a center fielder. And hopefully you move Marsh and Ranger and maybe a prospect and a deal to acquire a center fielder. But I mean, I don't know. I don't have a name for you at this moment. And now that Kyle Tucker's gone, and that ship has sailed, who else out there are we looking at in the outfield that can be acquired through trade? Unless you're trading Bohm at some point in time, and now you're, trying to get Arenado, or you're trying to get, um,
They're not bringing Arenado here. That's not happening.
yeah,
That's not happening at all.
unless you're trading Bohm and someone else for an outfield piece, and you're going to sign Bregman. I mean, that's
That
another
could
one.
happen. But I think you're getting a closer. I think the outfield might be done. I think that's your outfield, especially if they're signing Hayes.
Yeah, I mean,
Hayes, Kepler, and I mean you are weak in center field.
you're going to carry 5 outfielders on
What
the
did they
roster.
carry last year? Didn't they have 5 most of the time? Because Pache was there.
I think he was. I mean, yeah, but then Rojas was sent down for a while, so I'm trying to think if they ever carried
Uh,
5 at the same time.
they had Merrifield before they released him.
And then they brought in Hayes, so then he got hurt.
He
So
got
that was when
hurt.
Rojas came back.
Wilson.
I think Hayes, you would get him cheap. I think that's great to bring him back. And I think Hayes could play center field, can he? Hasn't Hayes played center field before?
I
I'm
think
not 100%
he
sure.
has. I mean,
So
I just I I mean, I understand it looks that way. I just have a hard time believing they're going to platoon 2 outfield positions. So I think one of these guys has got to go. Like, if you bring Hayes back,
then
then
Rojas is born then.
or yes. I mean, if you want to hold on to Marsh, then I think it's Rojas you do something with, or, um, I mean, Marsh would give you the other left-handed bat that you could switch around, or I mean, maybe Marsh is the one that goes and Hayes floats between left and center. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't
Which
see
is
them. I don't see them platooning both outfield spots that are not Castellanos. I don't know that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's why I think there's a trade coming at some point. It may not come until after the season starts, honestly. We might go into the season with this particular situation that we have, but I'm really not sure that. I mean, teams start to look at trade options somewhere around June. You start seeing some of the trades surface at that point in time. Maybe that's what they're waiting for, because you could trade a pitcher because Painter is coming, and you'll go after the center field piece or the bat that you want. But in terms of what you had said, it's not a big splash. The Kepler signing, the Raw signing, obviously is not a big splash. Luzardo, I want to get to him for a second, just for a minute. Um, I mean, he's coming off an injury. I mean, that's the one thing I have a concern about him. Obviously, he's got really good potential. Played on the Marlins for all of his career, so never was in any big spots, big leverage situations. The one time that he was, the Phillies kind of crushed him that game after the 3rd inning. But I have a worry a little bit about the fact that he's coming off of an arm injury. So
No, he's not. He had an arm injury in April and May, but this injury is a stress reaction to his back that
I,
kept him out for the rest of the year. So there's a difference.
yeah,
Not arm.
that could be even worse sometimes, because that's a nagging injury.
Now, when you're a pitcher, you're worried about arm injuries.
Yeah.
I I'm I love this trade. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that I wanted them to go after him in the past on this podcast. The guy's 27 years old. He's controllable.
Well, that I like what you just said. He's controllable. I mean,
I
he's
mean
young and controllable.
the guy has shown the potential in 2023. He had 200 strikeouts. I mean, he's a legit potential to be a number 2 starter on a good team. 3 at worst, right? He's left-handed. I like it a lot. I think it was a great move. Um, Low risk,
Well, that's the
sort of
thing.
low risk. I mean, you are giving up one of your chips.
Yeah, but that's a guy that's a couple years away, and you got a couple guys that are a couple years away. So you
Yeah,
don't want to
but
deplete the farm, but I mean, you traded for like you're not trading for 36-year-old somebody that's got like 1 or 2 years left. All right, this
but
kid
but
is
but
kid's
here's
27 and he can be in your rotation for years to come if you want to have him around.
I hear you. I listen, I love the trade. But what I'm saying about Kaba is he's pretty much your chip to trade, right?
Yes, you
Who
got to
else
make
is
sure that you're pushing your chips in at the
that's
right
your
time on
chip.
the right player.
Because if you
Because
want Crawford to be your center fielder eventually, obviously you're not trading Miller and
well, see,
Painter. So that's
I think you got to think about trading Crawford, but we've
I
been down this road
agree.
before.
I agree, but so
Other
far they don't seem interested in moving him.
Yeah, and it's the chip that you can trade too, because I mean, Trey Turner's not going anywhere anytime soon. If this guy
No.
is a shortstop, he's going to be blocked forever. So it's the one position on the field, that you can look at and say, well, this is expendable because we don't really need that
He
guy.
he was never gonna be a Philly.
Yeah.
He was never gonna be a Philly, but this was your
Yeah.
chip.
And I mean,
So
you go and do okay, it's costing you player capital, but I think the 2 years of control or whatever, plus I don't know if there's another arbitration year to that, I believe is going to cost him like 15 million or something. Whereas Minaya just signed for 25 a year.
yep.
Yeah.
I mean, Minaya has been established longer, I guess, but Minaya has been really good and really bad at times. So
Yeah.
this kid is young. You look at what this pitching coach has done with young left-handers and what he's gotten out of some of these guys. To me, it's especially when with the actual if they're actually trying to watch the payroll now, like it's a tremendous move as far as I'm concerned.
I
I mean,
totally
even to the extent we're talking about Ranger and all that, and obviously he's he could be out there, and this might be the last year's here. I think if you need to make a splash, does anybody think that Sanchez could be a more valuable trade piece than Ranger to another team at this point?
I
I
mean,
don't
he would be
know,
more
but
valuable, but I don't think that they're gonna trade. I think the because it what did they do? Did they go to arbitration with Ranger? Is it like didn't sign them for 1 year? Because he's gotta be up soon.
this is his last
This is
arbitration
last
year.
year. Yeah.
I
Alright,
know
so now
that. So
he's
this is the
gonna
last
want
year of control they have.
he's gonna wanna get paid, whereas Sanchez probably has
They just
didn't they
signed
sign him? They
Sanchez.
They just
signed
signed
him.
They
him.
signed him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. But to Meeker's point is, well, okay, so Ranger's a guy that's got 1 year of control as it is right now. And if you're going to trade him in the middle of the year, you see those trades with teams that are out of contention with a team that is in contention. It's like, look, we
Yeah.
just need 3 months to go to the World Series. Well, we all hope the Phillies are going to be in contention. So those trades aren't as frequent. If there was a player to be had, I think the conversation is worth having of moving Sanchez, all things being equal, if that gets you that one extra bat that you need because of the control and everything else. He might might be more valuable to another team if you're trying to go for broke at the deadline, which they haven't done in the last couple of years. So I don't know that this would be the year they do it anyway, but
Yeah.
you know,
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, is he more valuable to trade right now before the season starts? Because you have, well, you may not, first of all, if you have injuries in your rotation, you're not going to want to trade him. Right.
right.
So if you trade him now before even any of that stuff could possibly occur, plus teams are all, like it's all new.
I mean,
Like,
I think it's like buying a new car. As soon as the season starts, day one, every day after that, it becomes less valuable if you're looking to make a trade as far as Ranger. So you
and
got to do it.
you have
Unless he
less
pitches
to trade.
good. Unless he starts out like he started last year.
Yeah, but then like unless your whole rotation is tearing up, are you going to trade a guy that's pitching that good? Unless you're like, okay,
Probably not.
this is all smoke and mirrors. There's no way he'll be this good moving forward, and you hope you can con somebody else into making a bad deal,
Yeah.
which could happen. But I meant to think, like I think it was Bowden said, um, Dombrowski would just call him all the time. Like Dombrowski is going to call teams and try to make trades, and
Yeah.
eventually one of the other 29 teams is going to give in and make a trade. Really,
Yeah.
So
I think you could get by at the 5th starter with Rolson Abel until Painter's ready. So I clearly think that Ranger could still get traded in the next month or so. So
And you say you want a closer in
they
that
need a
sense.
closer. They do not have listen, Romano is a good arm who's had success in the past, but he was bad last year.
He was hurt
Something
last
happened to him last year. I don't know if he started
year.
tipping his pitches. I don't know what happened, but are you gonna count on him? I mean, you're basically one of the top definitely a top 5 team with championship aspirations. Are you gonna wanna count on him as your closer?
No.
Right? So you need a closer. Now, you're probably not signing Tanner Scott because they already said he's gonna get good money from somebody, and I don't think the Phillies wanna spend that kind of money. So that leaves either Bohm, Marsh, or Ranger to trade. And yeah, you're probably not gonna trade. I mean, they already tried to trade Bohm for Mason Miller, and Oakland A's hung up the phone on 'em. They don't they said, "End the conversation." So they're trying to trade for a closer, and Bohm isn't gonna get you that guy. Are they gonna move Bohm for somebody else?
Well, they're
I
not
don't
gonna
know.
they wouldn't want
They like Helsley from the Cardinals.
yeah.
Yeah.
See,
That would
if
be the
they
guy that would be the
pull it off, that might
Suarez,
be
like, trade him to St. Louis for Halsey or something.
They could do that.
if they could pull that off, if they can pull off a Helsley trade, that I wouldn't be opposed to that. Straight up. As long as we're not
So,
getting any more than Ranger.
well, I mean, you wouldn't give him Marsh and Ranger for Helsley and some
Well,
kind of
not
outfielder?
I don't know if it with the current, outfield as we have it, that I would give up Marsh.
You
If
could
they
probably go sign Hunter, what's his name? Harrison Bader for next to nothing. He's just as good as Rojas defensively, and he could give you more pop. If you were to even put more Rojas in that trade, give him Rojas and Ranger for Helson, and then go sign Harrison Bader for 1 year, $8 million or something.
yeah, I mean, there's a couple guys out there that you can that's a Bader type of guy if you wanna do a free agent signing on the heels of a trade. But, yeah, I mean, there's just like I said, I didn't have and I don't know if Helsley's, like, really being shopped around a lot. I know that the Cardinals seem like they're trying to rebuild a little bit, and, what's his contract coming up soon too? He's gonna get paid at some point. I don't know what his contract situation is, but
That
if
I don't
there
know.
if a guy like that's around, sure. I just when I'm looking around, I don't know who else might be available other than, like, a Ryan Presley, but I'm not doing that I'm not trading Rangers for Ryan Presley.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
So, alright. Um, so that's some good Phillies talk. I mean, obviously, they're not totally done yet, but they got Luzardo, they got Kepler, and they got I like Ross too. I mean, obviously, it's not as earth-shattering as Luzardo and even the Kepler, getting a good outfielder like that. But, there's still probably more to come, so keep our eye out for that. Alright, let's switch over to the Eagles. So the Eagles, lost to the Commanders last week. What was it, 36-33? Is that the score? Yeah. Um, Obviously, they took a lead in the first quarter. They looked like they were rolling along, and Hurts got knocked silly. Um, and then I heard I heard Greg Cosell, who I totally respect, and I like him a lot. I didn't agree with what he said. He was saying that the offensive line had a bad game, and that's why Barkley wasn't able to run, in the second half. And I don't agree at all. I think when Hurts is not in there for the threat of him to keep the ball and they could key on Barkley in a running situation, you know, everybody wants to talk about Barkley for MVP. You see Barkley's effectiveness without the threat of Hurts keeping the ball, what happens there. So I don't know. I didn't agree with the offensive line not having a great game. I just think Hurts out of the game hurt hurt Barkley. Um, so 5 turnovers by Washington, and they still won the game. So the defense was sort of disappointing, especially in the second half. CJ Carter, or what's his name? What's his name?
Arner
Johnson.
Johnson.
Gardner
Johnson.
Johnson.
I always thought was a total, you might have to bleep me, a-hole. And he proved it during the game. He got thrown out, and it wound up costing him. I thought Pickett played okay. For what I mean, listen, he is what he is. You put him in the game. He's a backup who hasn't gotten first string reps all year. He went in, he took him into the end zone, but then he threw a bad pick. Um, he is what he is. I think he'll be better this week, but we'll talk about that. And then you gotta talk about the 2 drops by the Devontae Smith drop, which really probably cost him the game, and then Barkley had a bad drop too. So,
Yeah, tough call.
um, I mean, all in all, it was a loss. I don't know if it's a devastating loss because I don't know if he wanted them to go into the playoffs with 13 or 14 straight wins, but it's a loss and it eliminated them from getting the first seed pretty much. So, we'll start with you, Chalky. What were your thoughts on all that?
Well, yeah, I don't think it's a devastating loss, and especially when you factor in all the considerations that went into it. Now, if you had your heart set on getting the number 1 seed, then yeah, obviously that screwed that whole thing up. And I'm not blaming the loss on this, but like I was texting with Tommy, and it's like the officiating in this league is so bad, and the Eagles probably got away with some calls or got some calls in their favor. I think some of the borderline,
Some of the Brown penalties.
some of the Brown penalties were borderline, but I've never okay, so Gardner Johnson chirps a lot, we know that. He got 2 personal fouls when they were in commercial breaks, just talking. Guy punched him, knocked his helmet off, gets nothing. And somehow he gets thrown out of the game just for taunting verbally.
Reputation.
You don't see, but you don't see that. And look, he should have kept his mouth shut after the first one. I don't condone whatever, but I mean, nobody's come out. Like, if he would have said, and I'll bleep myself, like, if he told the guy, like, I just knocked you down, like, okay, throw him out for that. But, like, no one's saying what he even said to get thrown out of the game. And that, to me, that did more towards the loss than the Hurts injury did, because they got 21 points in the first quarter regardless, and Pickett moved the ball enough. And also, I didn't think Pickett played all that well, but he got his ribs banged up fairly early, so he played like the whole second half, not healthy. But Gardner Johnson, like, when he got tossed out, and then you had some of these guys that were, Sweat had to go out, Dean got rolled up, missed a couple plays, Slay. So now you got guys missing plays here and there, and you got these backups in, miscommunication, boom, big play, touchdown. And that's really like the Washington. I mean, they had a couple drives where Daniels made plays with his legs when stuff broke down, and like Gardner Johnson being in there would have helped with that. And now you got back up here and back up there, and next thing you know, Daniels is running for 30 yards. And so, I mean, I really do think, like, so especially some of those big plays they had, like, that doesn't happen with Gardner Johnson in the game. Smith's drop, yeah, that was killer, and he's the most sure-handed guy on the team. So, they're 2 easy catches away from, being 14-1, or they could be 10-5 with the Saints game where they were down late, and there's another one I'm not thinking of that they pulled out late. But anyway, so I don't think it's a devastating loss. In one other way, right now they're set to play Washington in the playoffs. If that matchup happens, I think they will beat Washington by double digits. If Washington would have lost that game, Washington now has a 2-game lead over Tampa, who isn't at the top of their division. I don't want to see Tampa in the first round because they always have a good defensive scheme against Hurts. So you've given them a 2-game separation now for that last wild card spot. Now you got to hope Atlanta still wins the division, but Washington is the matchup you want in that 2 versus 7 game. There's no other team, whoever doesn't win the North plus Green Bay, you don't want to play either of them in the first round, and you don't want to play Tampa in the first round. So Washington is the team you want. So by virtue of them losing, they made it a much better chance to end up playing Washington in the first round. So I kind of look at it that way. But again, not a devastating loss when you consider all the factors that went into it, the injuries and some of the penalty calls. But I'm not blaming the refs for the loss.
What do you think, Meager?
Yeah, and another, you mentioned it, it's a strange game in that it's the second time this season that a team has won, even though they've had 5 turnovers, the other game being Detroit. Yeah, forget who they played, but Detroit did
I
that
think it was
earlier.
Houston, was it?
I'm not sure who
That
it
was
was.
like what's the name had 5
Yeah,
interceptions.
I think it was Houston.
Oh,
They came
I'm
back in the second
bad.
half. Goff had 5 picks.
Like you said, the first half, the Eagles looked in control. And then, of course, the Hurts injury occurs. And no matter how much you feel about Hurts as a quarterback, I mean, it definitely changed the game. Because, especially with third down, because they couldn't convert third downs. And whether it's by him throwing or running for first downs, that wasn't something they were able to do with Pickett. And that, resulted in 4 field goals in the second half rather than touchdowns. Um, you know, Jason mentioned whether it was the Eagles' offensive line. I kind of agree with you. Like you could tell. I mean, they were just daring Pickett to hurt them. They were up on top of Barkley pretty much on every play. So they were keen on Barkley, make sure that he wasn't going to hurt them, and just said, "Hey, Kenny Pickett, you hurt us, and we'll live with those results." The Eagles had to settle for the 4 field goals in the second half, and they had opportunities to put it away after the Blankenship interception with like 3 minutes left. But then that pass to Smith happened, and he dropped it, and that's the way that they get the ball back. Daniels pops in a few completions, few scrambles, gets him in the red zone there, and with 6 seconds left, you get the touchdown to Crowder. So I don't know if I would say because the time of possession in this game was highly on the Eagles' side. I can't say that the reason why they lost is because the Eagles' defense looked gassed or it was because CJ was out. But they were chasing Daniels around the entire game. So if the defensive line wasn't tired, I mean, I guess I could say that they were a little bit because of his scrambling ability and him running right, for lack of anything else that would have caused them to give up that lead in the second half. I would think, I don't know, did you guys see any, I don't know, is the defensive line just being tired in that second half because there was chasing after him the whole game?
No,
I don't know,
I
tired. I thought they got pressure, but like when he was able to like break contain, like I forget who their backup that played when Dean was out, but like Dean's out and Johnson's out. And you could see, like, as soon as he got through the line, like, they were lost in the middle of the field. Isaiah Rodgers is in for plays because Slay's hurt. Like, you know, those guys weren't able to read the play or cover correctly and contain his ability to run for 30 yards.
Yeah. He was the second player ever to, I don't know if it was the second rookie ever or the second player ever to rush for 75 plus yards and throw 5 touchdowns in a game. Did you see that stat? Among some other records he's setting for the Washington franchise and rookies that I saw this week. So he's the reason why this team has changed, has become what they've become. I mean, a playoff team. I don't think I expected them to become a playoff team. I know I didn't. I didn't pick them to make the playoffs. Um, and as Chalky said, I mean, this is the team that right now, as it stands, you're going to see in the first round of the playoffs. It's going to be home. Hurts obviously be healthy. Should probably be a different result. Whether it's a double-digit win, like you said, Chalky, or not. But yeah, they have no shot at getting the first seed at this point. So it's not a devastating loss. I didn't know if I really expected them to get the first seed anyway. But yeah, I mean, Washington showed a lot of grit in this game to win this game. And sometimes this happens. I mean, it's going to happen sometimes. I don't think that, I don't think it's like more of things to come or, oh my God, the sky's falling. Like some fans can get, losing a game like that. It's just a guy made plays and when it counted and they lost. And that's really what it comes down to. With CJ being out, maybe that's a big reason, but I think it's more of Hurts getting hurt and them not capitalizing in the second half on drives when they had to settle for field goals. That's why they lost.
so I don't think there's really an easy game for them in the first round because Washington has played them tough both games. They even played them tough the first game, and then the Eagles kind of separated it in the fourth quarter there. But I think Washington had the lead going into the fourth quarter, if I remember correctly.
The Eagles were driving and were ready to score, but Washington did have the lead.
They had the
Yes.
lead, right? So
Yeah.
I don't think there is an easy game for them in the first round, to be honest with you. But let's get back to Pickett. I think the problem you have is when you have a quarterback that gets hurt during the game, Pickett is a totally different quarterback than Hurts. So the package that's in there for Hurts, you are not using for Pickett. Now Mariota stunk, but at least you could kind of use a similar package
because he can
for
run. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You could use that package for Mariota because Mariota could keep the ball and stuff like that. You can't use that package with Pickett. So I would expect this week for them to have a full package for Pickett. And I think it'll make a big difference. And I'm not a Pickett fan. I don't think he's that good. He's fine as a backup. Obviously he's not a starter at all. Um, but I think that's the issue you have when you have two different types of quarterbacks between your starter and your backup. So, all right, let's jump into the Cowboys game. Cowboys are playing well. They won 4 out of 5. I totally do not think there is a huge drop off between Cooper Rush and Dak Prescott, if there is any at all. Now, they're different types of quarterbacks. Cooper Rush can't make some of the throws that Dak makes, but Cooper Rush plays a more intelligent type of a game. Makes better decisions, makes quicker throws, uh, more cerebral. Let's say that type of game than Dak would play. Um, and I don't think Rush is that great, but I don't think Dak's that great either. I don't think there's a big drop off at all. So now they're going to have a problem this week because CeeDee Lamb is now done for the year. They said today he's getting surgery, so he's not playing this week or next week. That will greatly hurt Dallas's chances to win this game. As we said for Hurts, it looks like he's not going to play. I already mentioned what I think about having a package in for Pickett. Pickett's getting first team reps, which he got today, and I'm sure, he'll get tomorrow as well. So, I'll get to my prediction after, but I'll throw the chalky and see what his thoughts are in the game.
It's a small sample size, but Rush has looked absolutely atrocious in the 2 games he's played against the Eagles in the last 2 years, and Dak usually has their number in some way or fashion. And his first start this year was against the Eagles, but he was a starter all week, and he went 13 for 23 for a total of 45 yards. So, at least against the Eagles, I cannot agree that Cooper Rush is close to Dak because I think it's a huge drop-off in the way they played against the Eagles. I don't think it matters with CeeDee Lamb not playing who your quarterback is because you're going to struggle with the rest of that offense the way it is without CeeDee Lamb, who is a top 3, at worst top 5 receiver in the league. And he's, his stats have stayed up because Rush is obviously looking for him, but he plays, he's a very, very, very good player. I don't know. I mean, I really have no idea. I mean, with Pickett, you assume he's going to be a little better. I think the Eagles are just a better team, obviously. I was on the edge on whether I was going to take the Cowboys or have a really close game until the Lamb news came out. Unless Pickett's going to throw 4 interceptions, which is completely possible, I don't think it's going to be too close of a game. I think the line is currently at 7. It's fluctuated all day. I'll say 17-10 Eagles. I don't think it's going to be a shootout. And the Dallas defense is banged up, so maybe Pickett can take advantage of that with the right scheme and a week of practice. But I don't have a lot of faith in Pickett just yet, and I don't know what to make of Dallas without Lamb. So we'll go 17-10, and hopefully they can rest whoever they want Week 18 against the Giants.
So I'm looking at Dallas' schedule. So Cooper Rush played the first game against the Eagles and was bad. It was awful. And then he did not look good against Houston either. Then they rang off 4 out of 5 wins where they put up 36 points on the Giants, who stink, or Washington. I'm sorry, 34 points on Washington, 27 on the Giants, 20 against the Bengals, but they lost the game.
Well, hold on. Don't forget the Washington. Dallas ran 2 onside kickbacks for touchdowns in that Washington game.
All right.
But, I mean, still, 20 whatever points is still not bad.
He still won the game, right? And he put up points. 20 against the Bengals, lost. 30 against Carolina. 26 last week. I think it takes time for a guy to get rhythm. And now he's in his rhythm, and now they have a package that they know works for him. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I don't think that maybe you think Dak's a better quarterback than I do. I don't think he's that good. Um, and granted, he's probably a little better than Rush. I don't think there's a huge drop off between Cooper Rush and Dak Prescott. Now, without CeeDee Lamb, might be a different story this week, but I don't know how they would look without CeeDee Lamb if Dak Prescott was the quarterback.
No, yeah, that's
Mm.
exactly.
So, but Meeker, what are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, he covered some things like Dallas comes in playing well. I guess they're at this point playing for McCarthy's job. They were last week. I watched that entire game against Tampa. They were hitting hard. They were hustling. Defense, I think, has played better than I've seen them look in quite a while. What's Rush is in his 8th start since Dak got hurt, and obviously he's looked the best recently. Last week especially, going 26 to 35 for 292. They've won 4 of the last 5 games, which you mentioned. So he's been much better. But as you mentioned, a couple of those wins were against the Giants and Carolina. But I think their defenses look better recently too. And, as you said, because of 2 backup quarterbacks playing each other, CeeDee Lamb not playing, and either team, I guess the Eagles not having a whole lot to play for. I think it's a hard game to get a feel for since Hurts' status is up in the air and it looks like he's not going to play for now. Um, Barkley has some records to chase. So if you're looking at something, maybe that's something they play for here in these last 2 games. So, but I actually think I'm going to take an upset here. I'm just going to take Dallas to win the game. I'm taking them 23-20. If anything, look for the Eagles defense to improve from last week. And if they can hold Dallas under 20 points, I think they'll win. It's a toss up game for me. I'm just going to go on a hunch here and take Dallas to win it because of the way they're playing lately.
Yeah,
Game
I'm gonna go with the Eagles in this game. I think, like I said, I think the package will be in. I think it'll be run heavy, of course, but there'll be a better package in for Pickett. Um, and I think Dallas without CeeDee Lamb. I mean, he's their best player, or best offensive player anyway. I think that's gonna hurt them offensively. I'm gonna pick 24-17 Eagles. Um,
So
and
here's my question. I mean, if Hurts did clear protocol, would you still play him? Would you play him?
If he, yeah,
uh, I mean, if he does, I guess you play him. But I mean, I wouldn't be pressuring him to practice tomorrow. I mean, if I don't know, I think they're going to get number 2 seed. I mean, they could put the punter as a quarterback next week against the Giants and win, and that's all they have to do is win 1 game, and
Yeah.
they got the 2nd seed. So, uh, I I I personally would not play him because now listen, there's a threat of Hurts now getting another concussion
Exactly.
at
Right.
some point, whether it be this week or next week or in the playoffs. If he gets another big hit, as in this short time frame from when he got his last concussion last week, you know how the concussions work. Now you're really screwed in the playoffs. So I just think whenever he plays again, there's that threat of him getting another concussion, the way he runs the ball.
I
Yeah. I
think you're
mean, and
right.
that
But
may
I
feel
don't. If he clears, I don't think there's more risk this week as opposed to next week. If you
No, there's
clear,
not.
like there's that risk is going to be there whenever. I think moving forward, like we saw with Lindros once he started getting
Right.
concussions
But the
and all
less
that.
unless he's got to be out there, the
Well,
less
but
chance he plays.
I'll tell you, even if they win, you say, oh well, let's sit him. They win this week. I I wouldn't want to go into the playoffs. I wouldn't want to have to play him next week. But I wouldn't want to go into the playoffs with him basically sitting for 3 straight games and then have to come off the bench.
Well, what you
so
could
they did
do,
that years ago. Then they
huh?
said the year that they had the bye, didn't he not play? And
He
they
was
had
he
a
was hurt for 2 games, but then he came back and played the full game in week 18 when they needed to win that game to secure first place.
Well, what he could do is if he plays in a meaningless game, at least he doesn't have to run, right? He could
Yeah,
be more like cautious and
I
just
would.
be,
Yeah, I
you know what I'm saying? Like, don't take off and run, or if you take off and run, slide 5 yards
I would
upfield.
just rather have him not even suit up for that last game. But that's, you know, that's just my take on it. Yeah, but I don't like if I Pickett's what Pickett. I don't think there's any. I'll be shocked if he clears protocol tomorrow. So if Pickett does play and they win, I don't know that I really want him to play Week 18, but I don't want him sitting 3 weeks either. So yeah, I guess you could play him for a quarter or a half,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, treat it treat it kinda like that last preseason game, just, throw him out there for a drive or 2,
yeah.
just
Well,
just to get
he's had like 0 drives the last 2 preseasons.
like, well, they used.
They don't play the starters in the preseason anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into some stats from last week. So over under, again, it's been an over year, 10 over, 6 under. Over's way, I think it's 123 to 100, which is amazing. Just overs dominated lately. And then for the public had a 6-9 in 1 week, so they're back under 500. They're 120, 125 on the year. I don't know, it just feels like more of a public year than maybe it is, but, I guess the stats are what they are. So for us, we had a 500 week. We were 6-6, thanks to Chalky, because Chalky went 3-0, while me, Meeker, and Tommy all went 1-2. So Chalky's best bet was the Rams Jets under 46, and that was well under, so that was an easy win. Did have the Chargers, who made a comeback on Thursday night. They were down big, and then they came back, but he won that game. And then he had Washington, so plus 3.5. So he went 3-0. I went 1-2. Lost another best bet. Well, no, not really another. I shouldn't say that. But I did lose a best bet. I had the Texans. Stroud was terrible, and
Terrible again yesterday.
Continues to be terrible.
They had 2 points yesterday, so
That he did not get.
that he did
They're
not get.
they're a first round out if I ever saw one. They're done.
Absolutely, they're a mess.
Yeah.
And then I had the Bears, who I will never ever pick again this year because they are a dog quit. That was an awful pick. I deserved to lose that game. Then I had the Panthers. Not the Panthers. I'm sorry. I had the Patriots, who probably should have beat Buffalo in that game. But I had the plus 14, so pretty comfortable win. Tommy went 1-2. He did hit his best bet with the Ravens, -6. He lost the Giants Falcons under or over, because I guess they didn't do something late in the game, kick a field goal or something.
I know it was a point, right? He only lost by a point or something,
Lost
but
by
I
a
don't
point,
I
yeah.
don't know what
Yeah.
that scenario
But then
was.
he had under in the Vikings Seahawks, and that was a loser. Meeker 1-2. Please, nobody fall out of their seat. Meeker won a best bet with the Lions.
It's 2 weeks in a row, I think.
It was 2 weeks in a row. It was very Joe Public, but he won it with the Lions. The Saints, Meeker, that that should count as more than one loss. We won't do it, but it should. And then the 49ers Dolphins under was a loser.
That should have never happened. I mean, I'm never
Was
picking under again.
was a loser. What's that?
Never picking under. Oh, well, I mean, there's not much left in the
No,
season.
you're not. You're
And
not.
any
You're
unders
not.
the rest of the year.
You're not
That
good.
was a disgrace. But
You're not good at picking at all, but you're really not good at picking unders. So, let's do the stats for the year. So Chalky's now 27-20 on the year, a profit of $480, 57% win, 10% ROI. I am under 500 now. I'm 23-24, loss of $313, 49% win, -7% ROI. Meeker is 20-26, loss of $800, 43% win, -17% ROI. Tommy 17-25, loss of $962, 40% win, -23% ROI. For the year, the podcast is 88-98, loss of $1,807, 47% win, -9.7 ROI. Let's go over best bets. I'm now 9-6 on the year, 60%. Lifetime, I'm 29-20, 59%. Tommy 6-8, 43% on the year, 25-22, 53% lifetime. Chalky 7-9, 44% year. 26 and 25, 51% lifetime. Meeker is 7 and 9, 44%. 22 and 28, 44% lifetime. Podcast is 102 and 95 lifetime, so not bad with best bets. And then overall, the podcast, I am 86 and 66, profit of $1,195, 57% win, 8% ROI. Tommy is 70 and 72, loss of $615, 49% win, minus 4% ROI. Chalky 76 and 77, loss of $718, 49.6% win, minus 5% ROI. Meeker 70 and 78, loss of $1,486, 47% win, minus 10% ROI. The podcast overall lifetime for the four of us, 302 and 293, loss of $1,624, 51% win, minus 2.7% ROI. Got to pick it up. Chalky, you have been the leader this year. You have gone first every week this year. You're doing well going first every week this year. You're going to go first again.
So if I did my math right, I need one winner out of these last 6 picks to have a profit for the year. So with that in mind, my best bet is going to be Buffalo money line minus 470. No, I wish. I am going to take something in that game though. I'm going to take under 46.5 in the Jets Bills game. That's minus 110.
Under 46 and a half, minus 1.
Yes.
Okay.
I am going to go. I mean, there's just bad teams, bad lines. I don't know. I'm going to take a bad team. I'm going to take Jacksonville money line against the Titans. That's minus 112. And I kind of wanted to go money line on this one, but I am not that bold. But I'm going to take the Giants plus 7.5 against the Colts. That's minus 110.
Good luck with that.
I'm going to hope the hook. I hope the hook comes through.
Good luck. Meeker, please don't have my picks, Meeker.
So my best bet, which, could end up not really being that meaningful for them, but I'm going to take them hoping that it could be meaningful. And that's Detroit minus 3.5 on the road at San Francisco. That's minus 102, Chalky.
That's correct.
Okay. 102.
102.
102. Second bet is going to be the Chargers minus 4. That's minus 108.
112.
That has been juiced up since this morning. Okay. And my third bet is the aforementioned Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to take them plus 7, minus 110 against the Eagles this week.
Plus 7, minus 1.
And that's that line is going anywhere from 8.5 to 6 at various times throughout the day. So that's been
it'll be under 7 because when they say Hurts is out, it's going to drop.
Yeah, well, I think this morning it was 8.5, thinking Hurts would play. Then it went to 6, and then when Lamb went out, it's up to 7. So
yeah. All right, so Tommy sent me his picks, and we have 2 of the same picks, but in different orders. So his best bet is the Vikings plus 1, minus 115. Did that change, Toki?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Yep.
Now his second pick is the Falcons money line plus 154. I don't have money line, but I do have the Falcons. But is it plus 154?
That is correct.
Okay. His third pick is the Raiders Saints under 38 minus 112.
That's correct.
So my best bet is going to be the Falcons plus 4 minus 108. Okay. My second pick is the Vikings plus 1 minus 115. And my third pick is, and let's talk about them. So the Falcons, Washington's coming off the big division win against the Eagles. Young team. Now they got the Falcons coming in. The Falcons need this game like they need air. The Commanders pretty much are locked in, I think, to where they're going to be. I just think it's a letdown game for Commanders. I think the kid Penix played pretty well last week. Now it was against the Giants. We'll see. I like the Falcons a lot in this game, especially with plus 4. I think the Vikings, and I should have mentioned this during the Eagles segment, but I honestly, if you now, and I've changed my opinion on this, if you now ask me who the biggest threat to the Eagles are? I think it's the Vikings, and I'll tell you why. Because of their defense, the confusing zones that they play or that defense is gonna confuse the shit out of Hurts. He is not good as it is against zone defenses. I think that defense is gonna give him all kinds of trouble. Darnold, I mean, listen, yeah, I knock him every week, but the guy is playing well. He really is, and they have a really good roster. They have a nice team, and I
Very good
think they
coach.
might.
Very good
Huh?
coach. Very good
They
coach.
got a very good coach. I think they might win the NFC. I really do. So I think they're being disrespected again against the Packers this week. And the Packers are playing well. Packers are tough. NFC's tough all of a sudden. But I think the Vikings are going to win that game. And then my third pick is the Cardinals plus 6.5, minus 108. And I know they're done and they got knocked out, but should the Rams really be given almost a touchdown against the Cardinals? I don't think they're that much better than the Cardinals. And it's not like the Cardinals are just going to quit. I think they're going to want to play spoiler in that game.
I think,
Um,
I think that's more of having more to play for. Might juice that line a little bit since the Rams are
which,
still getting the playoffs.
right, which, I mean, do we think the Cardinals are just going to flat out quit? I mean, they might. I don't
I
think so.
I, I would say no because I'm drawing a blank on the guy that he's Gannon. Gannon's not a bad coach. I mean, look,
He's not.
they didn't quit at the end of the year last year, and they came in here and beat the Eagles. Were struggling, but they came in here and beat the Eagles, and they looked pretty good at the end of the year last year after being out of it because Murray didn't start the season.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I think Gannon can get him to play. So it's
And
not.
I don't think the
It's not
Rams
a
are that good.
walkover.
I don't think the Rams are that good. I mean, they're okay, but I
Yeah,
don't
they're
know.
very inconsistent.
I wanted 7, but I don't buy points like Meeker tries to buy points. So 6.5. I'll take the 6.5. All right, guys. I guess this is the last podcast of the year. We probably won't do another one until 2025, right?
I think
Do
so.
that.
Meeker, one of the highlights of the year was you coming in last in the trivia contest. We'll probably have another one 2025 for you to try to, save face.
So let's do something really quick here since we're going into a new year. And we just had Christmas. So of the 4 teams in the city, Chalky, will start with you. What would be like the gift you want to give to the Phillies moving into 2025? What's your gift to them?
The gift of the Phillies. A bomb going off in Dodger Stadium and taking out LA. Maybe. I don't they I would like them to have one more bat, and I don't know. You could pick anybody. I mean, I'm not gonna say Soto or Ohtani or whatever, but one more bat in the lineup is what I would give them to make them that much more likely to possibly win the World Series.
What about you, OJ?
Closer.
All right, so your closer is your gift to the Phillies. How about your gift to the Sixers, Chalky?
2 good knees for Embiid.
Right.
Good one.
That's is one worse than the other. If I can only give one knee, whatever one is worse, but health in general.
Health, yeah, that would be mine. They just lost that rookie too for the rest of the year, which is a shame.
Yeah.
He's playing good.
Is he out for the year, they said?
He's
Yeah.
out for the year.
Yeah.
Which means
Those that rookie.
he could be likely to get traded because they're not going to get anything out in the rest of the year. And but I don't.
Oh, I don't
trade
think
him.
they're going to
I don't know who you trade him for, but
No, I don't think they would trade him. I think they'll trade KJ Martin.
salary wise, he would have to go. But depending on who you go after, you might have to throw like McCain in there because he would be the player you're actually looking for. But we'll see.
Yeah. You have anything different, Jason? Health for the Sixers, essentially.
No, I mean, when they're healthy, they're a good team. I mean, you saw what they did to Boston yesterday. I wish they had the kid because, that. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think they'll be healthy. I mean, you can't count on Embiid. Just can't count on them. But yeah, I mean, if they're healthy,
About the Flyers, what's your gift to the Flyers, Jason?
Listen, I said it for 20 years. They need to rebuild, and they won't rebuild. So I give up on them. They're just a bad organization with bad ownership. My gift is them to sell the team. How's that?
Okay. Chalky?
You need a center that's going to play 10 years with Mitch Goff, because he could end up being their first Calder Trophy winner for Rookie of the Year. But he doesn't have a center that's going to be there.
Even though Bill Barber should have won, but that's 50 years ago.
Yeah, and Hextall won the
Hextall should have won.
Vesna, but not the Rookie of the Year because
Luke Robitaille had 50 goals, I think, that year.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I would just give them relevance. Just make them a relevant team. You know, it was always fun when they're. It was. I mean, it's good times. You know, when they're a good team and they're playing like they were like what? How was it? 2012 was that the last time they went to the Cup against the Cowboys? 10? Yeah.
Mhm.
Just relevance. I mean, 15 years of nothing basically with that team. And finally, your gift to the Eagles, Chalky.
I mean, health is the obvious answer, but I mean, I guess the gift of Hurts to better read progressions or something, which he had actually been doing a little better until the last game. If they're healthy, they're as good as anybody in the league right now. Doesn't mean they're going to win the Super Bowl or win the NFC, but yeah. So I guess something that'll take Hurts one step higher as a quarterback, because if he can go one step higher, you know, if they're healthy, they can play with anybody right now.
Jason?
They need a quarterback.
So going into the let's take the top 4 teams because I mean the Rams and whoever wins the South, I'm really, I'm not going to even count them because I don't think that they're going to be there. But Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, Eagles, Goff, Love, Hurts, and Darnold. Who do you trust the most going into the playoffs?
I mean, who do I trust the most?
From a quarterback position, like that
I don't
quarterback.
trust any of them, but I
No.
think I'd rather have Love. I'd rather have Goff. I mean, Darnold, I can't say I'd rather have him than Hurts, but he's playing really well.
In their current offenses, I gotta say Goff, but I don't when Johnson eventually leaves, I don't know how good Goff is still going to be, but
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's Detroit is just a team. You trust them more than ever than the rest of them because of their offense and the skill players they have. But, yeah, I might trust. I mean, if it comes down to like winning a game, I might trust just with the quarterback. I might trust Love more than the rest of them.
He turns the ball over a lot. I like him. I think he's a good quarterback, but
yeah, I like him. He's got I mean, last year they jumped on Dallas and that was over early. When it came down to against San Francisco, he couldn't get the job done.
he's a bad pick.
So, as good as he is, he has to prove that he can do it. Goff has won close games. Hurts hasn't won close games, but he's won games, and he almost single-handedly won them the Super Bowl, which was a close game. So, Love has to show he can get the ball with a couple minutes left down in the playoffs and win a game, because he hasn't done that yet.
Yeah. All right.
All right, guys. Well, I guess we say Happy New Year, and we'll see everyone in 2025. Have a good night.